Thank you all for joining. I know probably a lot of you were thinking about leaving for hotel or for some refreshment, but it's nice to see you all here. My name is Dominik, and today I wanted to talk to you about choosing the right framework for your cross-platform development. So first of all, I wanted to ask you, how many of you are cross-platform developers already? So raise a hand if you're a cross-platform developer, and I see that quite many of you are, and probably the rest of you are thinking in some way of going cross-platform or want to see what's available in the cross-platform world. So for the beginning, I wanted to mention that I currently work at Uno Platform, which is one of the options that I will be showing here. And I just recently got a position at Microsoft, which I'm going to be part of. So just wanted to mention that all of the opinions in this presentation are my own, and they are not reflected from my employers. And all of the experience which I'll be sharing is my own, which I got over the years. I think since COVID, I've been exploring the cross-platform world and doing cross-platform development with some of my apps already published on the store, and some of apps which I'm preparing at the moment are going to be published as well. So let's get into it. And my clicker is not working, so I'm going to use the keyboard. I wanted to mention what actually cross-platform development is and why you might want to use it. So it is a way of writing your application once and then running it across platforms. So that means, for example, iOS, Windows, Linux, macOS, and others not known as well. So you might want to do that to attract more users, reduce the costs for your development, make your life easier, make the developer's life easier by choosing some of the available cross-platform frameworks. So you don't have to write your applications for every single platform natively, which is a huge cost factor for many companies. I'm going to mention in a little bit some use cases or case studies from existing companies which they migrated kind of to cross-platform and how they now benefit from it. So just wanted to also mention that the part about making your life easier is sometimes, because sometimes you can get into a position where your life actually gets a little bit worse when you choose some cross-platform framework, because it's not specific to what you want to develop. So here I have a kind of a quote or expectation versus reality, is that sometimes instead of writing once and then running everywhere, you can get into writing once and then debugging everywhere, which is a common thing that sometimes happens, and you have to account for that, and you have to choose your cross-platform framework right. So here is the case study which I mentioned. I hope it's visible in some way. It's from Jiří Charousek, who is the CIO or Chief Information Officer, I think, at Partners Banka, who is available in Czech Republic. And he mentions in his LinkedIn post that they actually brought their native app. They had two apps, which they developed separately for iOS and Android, and they brought it to the cross-platform world, and how they were able to do that, and how it kind of simplified their lives and reduced the costs. So you can, if you already read it, or you can read all of his posts after in the slides which I'm going to share. And I just also wanted to share how the app looks like. You can see it's very similar because they used canvas-based rendering for their apps. So the app looks very similar across the platforms, and now they are able to benefit from it for all their users. And the security and stability is there as it was with the native, but it's easier for the developers. So also one of the case studies is from Paul Jensen, the founder and CEO of TOB Software. If you don't know what TOB Software does or what it is, it's the guys that do the TOB index, which is, I think, yearly published index about how the languages and how the frameworks are being used and the comparison between them. So he mentions that Kotlin and Swift, so the native mobile platforms, are declining in their popularity, and they are being replaced by the cross-platform frameworks because they are getting to the point that they are better than they used to be, and they are getting to the point where it's no longer needed to write native apps. So what are going to be our key decision factors? What are we going to base it upon? And my answer to this one is that it all depends. And I would like to thank you all for coming to this presentation. That's all. No, just kidding. Our key decision factors are going to be those ones. So the performance, how the app is going to perform. Some of the apps might require more performance. Some of the apps might require more other stuff. So that's going to still be up to you. And I'm going to be mentioning that on the end of the presentation, how we are actually going to choose the best framework. And the next factors might be the ecosystem. So that means how many plugins are available, how many libraries are available, and how it's the overall community support from the developers, as well as the development experience. So for example, onboarding, if you are going to spend several hours on onboarding, you probably don't want to use that framework. So that's one of the factors that you have to consider as well. The UI control availability. So for example, if you're developing an app which is going to play videos, you should look into frameworks which support media player. If you are going to do a web browser, you should really look into frameworks that support WebView and others as well. So next is stability and maturity. How kind of broken or how much does the framework work, and the company backing, which is for many companies quite key as well. So we are going to base our resolution from that, and our contenders are going to be from a .NET space. So here I have MAUI, I also have Uno Platform and Avalonia. And if I go back, we'll also look into some others from outside of .NET, so Flutter and React Native. There are also many other frameworks which you can use, like for example, Ionic, NativeScript, Kotlin multi-platform. There was a presentation in this room. The previous presentation was about Kotlin multi-platform, so I definitely recommend checking that as well. But I don't have experience with that, so I decided not to mention it. And I think those contenders which I have here are the biggest one in .NET space and outside of the .NET space as well. I want to ask you a second question. How many of you, raise a hand, are from .NET or are working with .NET, if any? Yes, quite many. That's nice to see. I'm also a .NET developer, so that's nice. And now that we are going to start off with the .NET possibilities, I encourage you to also look on their GitHub repositories, because they are all open source in some way. So you can take a look into the source code. You can, since you are .NET developers, you can play around with it, maybe even contribute, which is a nice way of learning and also contributing to the existing projects and improving them. So first, I wanted to start with this one, that's Xamarin. Although it wasn't on the previous slide, it's kind of an older version of MAUI. It was actually discontinued last year, and the support ended on May 1st, 2024. I had a presentation on different conference with my colleague Martin Zygmunt about the options where you can migrate from Xamarin. So it's kind of a similar to this presentation, but only for the .NET space. So you'll be able to see the presentation from that session as well on my GitHub later. So let's start with MAUI. As I mentioned, the successor to Xamarin Forms, or Xamarin. It's Microsoft's own cross-platform framework. It's provided directly from them or from us. It works on Android, iOS, macOS, and Windows with a single code base. It doesn't currently support web and Linux. You can use the web via Blazor and other options as well, but MAUI as itself doesn't support it, and it uses native rendering. What I mean by that is that the framework gets the controls from the platforms directly, and then it overlays the styles and partially the behaviors from the framework to the native platform elements, so it's rendered on top of those. And sometimes the benefit of that is that you have better accessibility and better kind of life cycle of the individual application. So let's look at the pros of MAUI. I have to say this is kind of my subjective opinion. I will also share quite a few articles later on this decision as well. So many of the articles agreed with me on this one, and the pros for me are that it's fully the C# and native stack. It's coming directly from Microsoft, so it has the tight integration with Visual Studio. So when Visual Studio releases some new update, it's directly supported with that. It has very good mobile support. As I mentioned, it has the native controls, so the native UI feel, and it's very easy to migrate from existing Xamarin Forms apps. So that might be a benefit for you as well if you already have an existing application and want to migrate. There is, I think, a form where you just choose a few options, and then it kind of migrates for you. You have to choose some specific things. You have to repair some specific bugs which you get introduced to from the migration, but it's more simpler than going to the other platforms if you already have the Xamarin app. So the cons or the negatives of using MAUI is that the mobile performance might not be as optimized as others. It's from my own experience because I'll be comparing it to Skia-based rendering or Canvas-based rendering, where the rendering happens only from the platform or the framework, the actual framework. So there might be some performance hiccups with using MAUI. The UI customization is sometimes a bit too verbose because MAUI, as it uses the native controls, it also uses something called I forgot, but it's quite verbose styling which you need to do on the platform. And that brings some Android and iOS quirks because you have to write the styling layer for each platform separately, and it's called custom renderers, that styling. So you have to write the custom renderer for each platform separately. So that might be kind of a huge negative for you because it brings some of the disadvantages from native platforms to the cross-platform world. And as I mentioned, there is no web and Linux support at the moment, and it has a smaller ecosystem than, for example, Flutter and React Native. But it's evolving. It's still quite a new platform since going from Xamarin to MAUI, so it might improve very soon. So I wanted to show you some apps which have been built with MAUI. So for example, the Azure app on Android or iOS, which you can download. For example, as well, Berichtenbox, which is, I think, Netherlands app for some government stuff. Schreibsee, Ticketsphere, Redpoint, those are all applications written with MAUI, and there are many others. I hope I can alt-tab here. Yes. Here and in the documents which I will share with you later, you'll be able to find those links with the details on what case studies are there and what applications have already been written with MAUI. So this is the official kind of showcase of MAUI. It contains some of the apps which I mentioned, and there is a more advanced showcase of the applications here on GitHub from one of the lead developers. And it showcases all the apps built with .NET MAUI. You can download them, you can play around with them, and you can see what they do. So we can try out what other developers have already created with the platform, which I think is quite needed to see what actually already works and what you might not be able to get, for example. So next, we have Uno Platform. It is a open source cross-platform solution for .NET as well. It's built on the same layer as MAUI. It's not built on top of MAUI, but it's built on the same layer. So the .NET Mobile and .NET macOS, for example, they are all underneath those specific platforms. And the benefit of this is that it shares the APIs in some way, and you can use them across all the different frameworks. And the benefit of Uno Platform is that it targets the web. It also targets iOS, Android, Windows, macOS, and Linux as well, which might be a huge benefit for you. You can also develop from Visual Studio Code, and Rider, and you can develop with XAML, or you can use C# markup on behind the rendering options which Uno Platform has, which is native. So the same way MAUI does this, and Skia. So you can pick and choose, or if you choose Uno Platform, you can pick and choose between those renderers and see what works for you better. One thing to mention also, that on top of Uno, there are some paid features, like for example, Hot Design, which is a designing tool for designers to see the application running and be able to design it directly in the canvas of the application. I'll show it in a little bit how it works, but now let's look at the benefits or the good points on using Uno Platform. As I mentioned, it supports all the platforms, so web, we have WebAssembly, Windows, Android, iOS, macOS, Linux. It has the full-fledged WinUI styling. So if you know WinUI, there is quite advanced styling, and Uno Platform supports it because it's built on the same API layer as WinUI is. So if you already have an existing UWP or WinUI application, you can just run it against Uno Platform, and it will migrate it automatically for you to the other platforms, which is a great benefit as well. And the styling is not as bad as the custom renderers on MAUI, because you don't have to write it multiple times. You just write it once, and then it pixel perfectly renders on all the platforms. One of the benefits is that it also supports Fluent and Material Design out of the box, so you can design your application directly from the existing controls. And as I mentioned, it has the Visual Designer, which is a thing on top of the open source platform, and it's a paid feature for developers and designers to use. So the disadvantages on using Uno Platform is that it has a smaller ecosystem at the moment, so the community is a little bit smaller. The enterprise adoption is still a little bit smaller, but it has some great existing apps, which I will show in a little bit. There might be some steeper learning curve for non-WinUI developers. So because WinUI is quite hard to learn, there might be some difficulties for some developers, but it all depends on the on how are you advanced in .NET. So the thing that comes from it is that some platform APIs are limited to non-Windows, so you have to write some of the application, or you have to call some of the APIs natively, which might be a bottleneck, but it's evolving, and it's evolving quite fast. I'm going to show some unexpected APIs which we are currently working on. And also the WinUI API surface dependency might sometimes be a little harder to work with. So I want to also show you some of the apps which are built with UNO platform. So for example, Kahua, TradeZero, EpiApp, Toyota, or Hagap, which I can show in a little bit. And also, which you can see here, is something called NuGet.info. You probably know NuGet.org. If you are a .NET developer, it's a place where you find the packages and libraries for you to use. And NuGet.info is something similar. It's built directly from Microsoft on top of UNO. And I can show you here, actually. So if I load it and I go back to the packages, because I'm already at the next page, you can see that I can search for the packages which are available. So for example, here we have Newtons of the JSON. You probably know that package. And if I click on it and open it, it will download it, and it will actually show the contents of the package in the application. So you can look around and see how it was built. You can see the PBD info. You can check the sources and everything. So this is built directly from Microsoft. And if I look at the NuGet.org and, for example, UNO SDK, which is the core SDK of UNO platform, you'll be able to see on the side here that you can open it in NuGet Package Explorer, which is the NuGet info which I just mentioned. So it would load the package the same way. I also mentioned the unexpected APIs demo. This is a sample which we just built with my colleague for showcasing our new features. And it showcases all the available options, not all the available options, but some of the available options that you have in UNO platform. You can play around with it. It's a live sample. You can even open it on your mobile phones and play around with it. Here is, for example, web view. So if I press on the web view, it will open the same page inside the web view as well. So kind of an inception inside an UNO platform app. So also to mention the success stories, they are available on platform.uno/case studies. Here is Toyota. You can see the webinar where they talk about developing or migrating their app from Xamarin Forms to UNO platform, what were the bottlenecks and how they handled them and how they worked around some stuff maybe. So that's one of the webinars there. And there are also companies like Kahua, which they migrated their million lines of WPF code application to the web. And it's a great success story. There is TradeZero, there is IA Financial Group, and others as well. There are quite a bit of them, but most of the apps are unfortunately internal, so you cannot try them, but they are there. So just for the last thing on UNO, to mention the hot design. As I mentioned, it's the live visual designer directly in the application. As you can see here, I didn't bring any demos, but as you can see on this image at least, it turns your application into a designer surface. This is the application which you may build, and you just press a button here, and it brings the UI into a designer canvas where you can drag and drop stuff, where you can add controls, work with the properties, and it might be very beneficial for you if you have designers in your team and want to use them not to just design the app, but to actually build it inside the application. So next we have Avalonia or Avalonia UI, which is another option from .NET. It's a community-driven cross-platform UI framework for Windows, macOS, and Linux. It also supports the web and mobile as well, but from my findings, I find it that it's still very much in preview. I will show what I mean in a little bit, but I wanted to mention that it might there might still be some hard stuff if you choose Avalonia for mobile and web. For the building of the application, it's also a single code base with XAML, so the WPF flavor of XAML with C#, and it uses the GPU accelerated canvas-based rendering for the application to be rendered and showcased to the user. So the advantages of using Avalonia is that it has a strong desktop focus. So for Windows, Linux, and macOS, I believe that there is a very huge focus on those platforms because from my experience and from the case studies, you'll be able to see that most of the apps which are written on Avalonia are written for desktop platforms. As I just mentioned, there are many success stories for desktop apps. They have a very good MVVM and XAML support and fast canvas-based UI rendering, and some of the cross-platform theming and styling options as well as Uno, so you don't have to use the custom renderers from MAUI on Avalonia as well. The disadvantages I find with Avalonia is that, as I mentioned, the mobile and web support is still a bit experimental. There are many bugs which I found during my testing, and it's, I think, still in very early stages of development, but it's just my opinion. Maybe if you try it out yourself, you won't go into the problems which I found, but it all depends on what you're using. What I found is that there is increasingly more components or features which are under a subscription, which they call Accelerate. I'll show it in a little bit, that they are adding more controls, which is nice, but they are being added inside of the Accelerate subscription, which might which is something that you have to account for when you're creating your application. So it has, in some ways, smaller ecosystem than MAUI or Uno, because Uno can use, I haven't mentioned that actually, but Uno can use something called MAUI embedding, where you can embed the controls from MAUI inside Uno platform app, and it works on the platforms as MAUI does. I don't think Avalonia has that, or I didn't find it at all mentioned in their documentation. Also, some of the platform-specific features might be missing. So as well as Uno, you might need to write some of the platform specifics specifically on the platform. And one of the disadvantages might be that newer devs may need some time learning the Avalonia XAML differences which are there. So now for the case studies as well. So, for example, JetBrains Rider is partially written with Avalonia, only the plugin host UI components part, but apps which are written fully is, for example, Butyl, Core2D, Prismatic, Suki Assistant, and Pass Win Menu, and others as well, which I will show. So here we have the showcase as well. It's on avaloniaui.net/showcase, and you can see their applications which are using Avalonia. And as I scroll through the page, you may look at the icons which the apps are supported on, and you may see that it's mostly the desktop applications. So this is what I mean, that their web and web and mobile support is still a bit experimental. It's even kind of showcased in the showcase which they have. So other apps include Open Utah, Apollo Studio, and others as well. So I also wanted to showcase one of their web sample which they have. So now that it's loaded, it's showcasing the UI controls which are available on top of Avalonia. I don't think this is coming directly from them. I think this is a community plugin built on top, but you can use it in your application, and you can play around with it even on the web and mobile as well. So now for the Avalonia Accelerate, it's their subscription model for some of the features which they are now announcing, and as I mentioned, some of the controls which they are adding. You can take a look at this page yourself. I will just quickly scroll through it, but you'll be able to see that some of their dev tools, some of the, for example, media player, web view, and in the future other controls are going to be part of this subscription. So if you want to use Avalonia, you need to account for that. So now, outside of the .NET space, I decided to choose, I think, two of the biggest options which I found, or which I know. It's the first one I want to mention is Flutter. So it's Google's cross-platform UI solution or framework. It's community-driven with a strong ecosystem. It supports all of the platforms which are popular, so Android, iOS, web, Windows, macOS, Linux, as well as others. It's single code base with Dart, so custom language which they developed, I think, just for Flutter, if I'm not mistaken, which I'll be mentioning as a disadvantage in that space. And it also uses the GPU accelerated canvas-based rendering, which is one of the benefits which I mentioned here on the next slide. So it has fast UI performance thanks to the custom-based canvas rendering. It has a huge ecosystem and plugins. There are many available options for everything, but I find it as a little bit as a disadvantage as well. I will be mentioning because although there is a huge ecosystem, sometimes the plugins are being discontinued. Sometimes the plugins are not maintained, which I found quite many times, to be honest, because I was previously developing an app, and I think 3 of the 20 plugins which I used were discontinued in a year because they were just community created, and the maintainers just didn't update it with the next Flutter versions, and I had to choose different plugins for my app. So it has a strong mobile support. Many apps are developed for iOS and Android with Flutter. It has great tooling, hot reload support, and growing desktop web support. So as I mentioned, the disadvantages of Flutter include the Dart language, which you have to learn, and you have to spend extra time if you don't know it yet. And you probably, if you don't use Flutter, you probably don't know it. So you have to account for that. There are the native platform APIs on those individual platforms also need some bridging. Sometimes if there are non-existent plugins already. It has big reliance on community pubs, which is how they call, or how the kind of the NuGet is called on the Flutter side. It's called pub.dev, and some of the developers call it pubs, which are the plugins. And the web and desktop is still catching up. I didn't find any apps built on desktop with Flutter, which are in production that are not created by Google or the Flutter team, and I wouldn't recommend it for desktop at the moment at all now. So to show you the case studies for Flutter, for example, Google Ads, eBay Motors, Nubank, Alibaba, Reflectly, ByteDance, Google Pay, and BMW all use Flutter for their applications, and I can show you the showcase as well. As there are many Flutter apps which are already in production, you can browse through it later yourself even. And what I find interesting is that for some of the apps which Microsoft develops for consumers, that they also used Flutter for mobile. And I think the Surface team uses it heavily for their previous mobile app for the Surface Duo, if anyone remembers it, which is interesting as well. I wanted to also show that there are many more applications which are not mentioned on the showcase side. There is also a list of the applications which are developed with Flutter. There is kind of quite a huge list, and there are even some of the desktop apps, but as you can see, there are not that many of them available. So this is something that I wanted to showcase as well. It's a web app developed with Flutter directly from Google. It's a sample app. It replaced their gallery app with this showcase. It's a very, I think, graphical heavy interface which you can browse through. What I find interesting with Flutter is that maybe you can see the animation a little bit laggy. That's not just coincidence. You can try it out yourself. That's what I mentioned by the web and desktop support not being that ready yet. Because if you open this page, I think on desktop and on the scroll or the scrolling on the PC is not going to be very smooth. So last, we have React Native. It's another option outside of the .NET space. It's developed by Facebook or Meta as a cross-platform UI framework as well. It has large community and rich plugin support. It's mostly focusing on Android and iOS. It has also Windows and macOS community support. So you can target it, but still, I wouldn't recommend it that much. And an interesting fact about the Windows support is that Microsoft actually invested into doing UI library with Fluent UI for React Native, which is interesting as well. And for React Native apps, you use single code base with JavaScript or TypeScript. So if you're already if you're already JavaScript or TypeScript developer, it might be beneficial for you, and you can kind of reuse your developers for the web for your React Native apps as well. And for the rendering is that it bridges the native UI components as well as MAUI does. So it takes the native components from the platforms and then it overlays them with the styles as MAUI does. So the advantages of React Native is that, as I mentioned, it uses JavaScript or TypeScript. It has fast development lifecycle with live hot reload. It has large open source ecosystem. As I mentioned, even Microsoft contributes to it with the Windows support and Fluent UI support. It has very easy onboarding experience for third-party integrations, and you get the native UI feel with the native components which are being rendered on top of. The disadvantage of React Native sometimes might be performance bottlenecks for some complex UIs, because the components have to be overlaid instead of drawn natively on canvas. There is a big reliance as well on community plugins. So there might be the same case as with Flutter, that those packages can be discontinued or not supported on the current versions of React Native. There is more manual native bridging for some of the deeper APIs, which are not supported for now, for example. The web support needs some extra frameworks which are built on top of React. So for example, Expo, React Native Web, and others as well. And something I also had to mention here from my experience, that the debugging of the native issues can be quite tricky. And as you can see on the meme, it's quite common in the React native community that it works on their machine and doesn't work on the machines which are used with the users. So some of the React Native apps are, for example, Instagram, but not the whole app, actually. I was under the impression that Facebook developed their app fully with React Native, but actually it's not true. Instagram and Facebook are just partially written. So for Instagram, I think it's just the layer of editing, or the layer of camera UI, which I found interesting. Also, Skype was developed with React Native. Uber Eats is partially developed with React Native. Walmart uses it. Pinterest is developed with React Native, or, for example, Discord and Tesla. So they also have this showcase on their website, where they showcase the apps developed with React, and you can browse through it as well. But keep in mind that some of the apps are not fully written with React, but just partially, and they communicate with either the native solution for the app, or with some other framework. So I wanted to also mention curated list of native React Native apps. It's the same as I showcased with MAUI, for example. There is a huge list of applications which are developed but not mentioned on the showcase site. And now, let's see who I choose to be the winner of our kind of competition of those platforms. So it's a hard decision, and I was very hesitant to choose, so I didn't choose. Because I see you as the winner of not having to use Java Swing anymore. No, just kidding. The decision would be very hard to make, because there are many things that need to be considered for your specific case. There are many parts of the development which you need to consider for specific teams and specific requirements of the applications, and it would be like using a small pump for a huge wheel like this. So you would have more work than actually using the native side. So I decided, and as many other articles, for example, and many solution or many other presenters and speakers and many sites decided to choose it based on the requirements partially, and do a recommendation, which I really recommend to anyone, to make minimum viable product if you are able to, using at least 2 of your selected choices. So for example, if you're developing a desktop app, you should choose, or in my opinion, from what I see and what I tried, you should choose, for example, Avalonia, and you should choose, for example, Uno platform, and you should compare the results of the MVP with the requirements that you have. And as I mentioned, I included some of the cases or some of the scenarios which you might be getting. So for example, in my opinion, when I would be developing a desktop app, from what is currently supported, I would choose Avalonia or Uno platform, and I would compare them together. If I was developing, for example, a mobile app, there is the huge space of what I just showed, because every of the platform or every of the framework supports the mobile platforms. So I mentioned almost all of them, but I want to break it down a little bit. So if you're not .NET developer, I would choose Flutter or React based on your experience. So if you already have experience with JavaScript, I would probably go with the React Native to try. But if you don't have an existing experience and are not a .NET developer, I would go with Flutter. And if you are a .NET developer, I would try to compare MAUI and Uno platform to see how the application performs and if it would fit my needs. For performance-heavy apps, if you're heavily based on rendering a lot of UI and re-rendering the apps, I would go with Flutter or Uno platform if you are a .NET developer, an existing .NET developer, because as they offer the canvas-based rendering for all the platforms, it might be very beneficial for you to benefit from their performance kind of layer. If you're creating an application targeting all the platforms, including the web, I would choose Uno platform because it has the most stable support across all the platforms, and you might benefit from that as well. And if you are not a .NET developer, I would still think about it, or I would compare it with Flutter MVP just to see what works for me. I think one of the last cases here, if you already have a WPF application and you're migrating to cross-platform or just want to modernize your app, I would choose Avalonia because you will have the easiest time migrating it, because the XAML and the underlying layers are very similar, so it will be the easiest for you. And if you are developing or you're migrating or your team is already skilled in the UWP and WinUI kind of XAML and style of development, I would choose Uno platform as well, because you can just take your existing UWP or WinUI application and then run it across Uno platform, and it will work cross-platform. So I would like to thank you for your attention. Before I end, I also want to encourage you to take a look at my GitHub page, where I prepared some of additional resources which I kind of based my presentation upon. So some of the articles or some of the links there include an article from Joshua Oeda about the adventures of picking a UI framework. Other article is about choosing a framework to build a native app on Windows with .NET. It has similar comparison to what I did here. So it asks you a question: if you are developing something, then I recommend doing something. And one of the last articles which I based my presentation upon is from my friends at Reagan, because they made quite a comprehensive article about the Xamarin alternatives and about the migration and modernization from Xamarin apps, and you can see all of the options which or even the options which I didn't mention compared against each other. So thank you all for listening. Here are my links for my social media, and I'm glad I was able to present here, and maybe see you in some next presentation, or if you have some questions, don't hesitate to ask. Thank you.